Welcome to another podcast episode at Little Sparrow Loved. I'm Sarah and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're folding laundry, going for a walk, or curled up under a blanket with your fourth cup of coffee or tea, today's episode is just for you. So we're talking about a phrase that's been sitting deep in my heart lately, and I've whispered it to myself more times than I can count this week. You don't have to be okay to be obedient. That's it. That's the message. And it might be exactly what someone out there needs to hear today, because here's the truth. We live in a culture that really loves the image of strength, don't we? We like success stories, the one where the person comes out stronger and braver and shinier. And we love the before and after pictures, the ones where pain is tied up in a neat bow and shared with a filter and a scripture quote. But what about the in-between? What about the middle of the story when the healing hasn't come yet and the hope feels fragile? What about the obedience that shows up when we're still crying? And here's what I've learned through my own journey, especially in the dark and tender places. Obedience isn't about having it all together. It isn't about looking strong or feeling capable. It isn't about emotional stability or spiritual confidence. Obedience is surrender. Obedience is handing over your trembling, teary, raw self to the Lord and saying, even here, I'll follow you. And let me take you back to one of the most human, gut-wrenching moments in Scripture. And that's Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the Jesus who fed the 5,000 and healed the sick. He walked on water and taught with authority. And yet here, on the night before the cross, we find him weeping, sweating blood, pleading with the Father, if there's another way, take this cup from me. And if you've ever wondered if God can handle your weakness, go read Luke 22:44. Actually, I'm going to read it out to you right now. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. So if you've ever felt like a bad Christian because you didn't feel strong enough to obey, remember that even Jesus cried out in anguish before surrendering. And that moment was not polished. It was not picture perfect. It was holy. It was obedience born in deep sorrow, and it was still perfect. So why do we think our obedience has to come from strength? Why do we put pressure on ourselves to feel okay before we say yes? I used to believe that if I was going to do something for God, I had to feel ready. And I had to feel strong in my faith, and I had to feel peace. But there have been seasons where the only thing I felt was exhausted and confused and heartbroken. Yet God gently asked me every single time to just trust him. Not because I was strong, but because he is. And I remember one day, not too long ago, sitting in my car, just sobbing. And it's happened more than once, let me tell you. But you know, those cries where your chest aches and you feel like there's no end to the tears, that was me. And in the middle of all that mess, I felt this tiny, quiet nudge. Just go back. Just show up. And I didn't feel brave. I did not feel spiritual. I felt like I had nothing left, but I went, and it was messy and it was hard, but that yes was sacred. And obedience doesn't wait for you to be okay. It just waits for your yes. And maybe that yes today looks small, like maybe it's replying to that message, praying that one-line prayer, forgiving someone even when you're still hurting. Maybe it's getting out of bed and brushing your teeth and saying, Lord, I'm here. That's obedience too. The world, it's going to tell you that you need to be polished before you can lead, healed before you can help, whole before you can walk forward. But Jesus says, come as you are. He used broken people again and again throughout scripture, people who were not okay. Let's look. Moses argued and begged to be replaced, and Jonah literally ran away. Jeremiah cried his way through his calling, and David sang psalms from inside a cave, heartbroken and hunted. They weren't fine. They weren't perfect, but they obeyed. And so can we. And obedience from a place of weakness is still obedience. And sometimes it's the most beautiful kind, because it means we're not relying on our own strength. We're resting in His. And there's this lie that says you have to be full to pour out. But sometimes God uses our emptiness to show His power. And He uses our ache to remind us we're not alone. He uses our little yes to shift something in the kingdom. So today, I want to speak directly to you, the one that is listening. You don't have to wait until you feel better to say yes to God. You don't have to clean yourself up emotionally or spiritually before you move forward. And you don't need the energy of a lion or the faith of a warrior. Sometimes the most beautiful thing you can do is just whisper yes with a tear-streaked face and a tired soul, because that yes moves mountains in ways you cannot see yet. So here's a reflection question for you today. Where in your life is God gently asking you for your obedience, even if your heart feels heavy or unsure? And what would it look like to say yes today, even in the middle of the mess? So I want you to ponder those for this week. And that is all, my friend, for this episode. Thank you for spending a few moments with me today. I hope you walk away reminded that your obedience doesn't have to be loud or confident. It can be soft, quiet, and full of trust. And I'll say it one more time, just in case you need to hear it again. You don't have to be okay to be obedient. So I'll see you next time. Keep walking gently, my little sparrow. You are not alone.